Hello and welcome. This is a different episode of the 1904 Club today. It's just me and Prut, because Fletch, well, he didn't fancy it, and Burnsy, he didn't fancy it either. So there we are. It's just me and Dee. How are you?
I'm good. The statement that you made about cutting away the dead wood, I thought was a bit harsh before we started recording. But I'll stick up for the two chats. They're
no, I did record that.
Big misses.
I did record that.
You did. You did.
We're into free transfer season already.
How are you, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. Still a bit frustrated, given that was a game that we all knew that City needed to win at Watford on Saturday. And I must admit, when Fabio Carvalho got fouled after 10 minutes and two fans stepped up, I thought there's no doubt, there's no danger he's not going to miss this, and we'll probably go on and win the game. And he saved it. It's and then they had chances late on. I think if I'm being objective, which is what I'm supposed to be, I thought a draw was probably about a fair result, because while City had good chances, Watford themselves had good chances and could have won it with better finishing. So, you take the point, and how would you assess it?
Yeah, it's one that is kind of compounded, of course, if you're a City fan, when you've watched your team and your result, and then you quickly check for what other people are doing, you think, oh, Christ. I mean, it could have been a different kind of setup entirely. I'm with you. Fabio goes down, it's a penalty. Ozan steps up. We think, right, this could be a pretty decent away day now. Get an early goal, control the game, as Liam likes to do. And you go home, and then you've kind of comprehensively closed the gap between yourselves and the top six. But that's not the case. Obviously, of course, with the defeat of West Brom that we saw at Leicester, chucking that into the mix as well, it could have been a very, very different set of circumstances. But yes, game in hand on both West Brom and Norwich. Coventry just behind them with 2 games in hand on Norwich and West Brom. So there's still the ability to kind of fight, to hope, to potentially do something. But it's down to City putting themselves in a position where they've got to be practically perfect. Well, they have got to be perfect now to get anywhere near it, haven't they? So that's where the pressure comes in. I thought Ozan, the little back heel chance that he had as well. In the split second, you're going, it's great kind of interpretation of a situation. When you watch it back, you think, take a touch, turn around and just smash it in. There's nobody near him at all, apart from the goalkeeper.
I don't think he got out, did he? I don't think anybody communicated that he'd got a bit of time and stay. I guess from his point of view, he's probably not expecting to have that much time in the 6-yard box
to be able to turn. Yeah, I get that. I get, and I suppose as well, if you do have your back to go and you hear company, you're presuming that if it's not the goalkeeper, it's at least another defender there as well. So I'll take that. But that frustration that comes, as I said, with other results coming off the back of again, Coventry obviously not from a results point of view, but from a emotional high potentially going into that game. It could be very, very different now. But it's genuinely, I mean, broadly good work done under Tom Cleverley at Watford. Take nothing away. They've got good players. They're another team that's woefully underperformed for the best part of the season. Hence the fact that you change manager and you find yourself where you are just kind of swimming towards the end of the season and you're fine. Bits to like, bits to be frustrated by. But I mean, how many times have we said that over the course of this season's podcast?
And I think that's the crux of it, isn't it? Liam came in, I spoke to Liam after the game, and we sort of, like you do your pre-chat before everything gets recorded. And we were both basically said, same old. And that is, I think, again, another example of what's encapsulated their season at times is for all their good play, all their positivity, some wonderful football at times again on Saturday, some decent chances carved out, admittedly, probably not enough of them throughout the game, bar the last 10 minutes. They just didn't press home that advantage. I felt that, they started really well. They straight on the front foot, obviously had the penalty, and then from the penalty save, it was like Watford woke up a bit. City weren't quite at their level, and for quite a long time the game sort of meandered along a bit. And I just wanted City to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, given the fact that they needed to win the game. It never really came until, like I say, the last 10, 15 minutes. He made a raft of changes. They went hell for leather. He threw Greavesy up front. He went through one-on-one, and and Backman made a really good save. It was refreshing actually to see a goalkeeper hold it, because now they're keen to bat it away or punch it or whatever. He actually held it, and with 2 or 3 players around him.
Yeah. There wasn't a split second there, Baz, when he went through as you watched it, and obviously my eyesight's terrible. You're kind of going, who the hell's that?
Yeah,
close when you go, what on earth's Greaves is doing it there? But yeah, because when he goes through, you're thinking, what's going to come of this? And it's just about hitting the target, isn't it? Left foot, get the shot on target. And it was. I suppose that does reflect that urgency that does come towards the end of a game. Traditionally, it's like just launch everyone forward, let's see what happens. End of season type stuff. But again, you can sense Liam's frustration about, obviously, first and foremost, the result, because performances, if you're winning at this time of the season, performances do not matter at all. Read into that Leicester against West Brom. I don't know how on earth West Brom did not win that game on Saturday, but it doesn't matter. Leicester won, top of the league. You know what I mean? But almost done. Leeds lose tonight. Leicester win tomorrow. That's them home and hose. So it's it goes to show what those kind of fine margins are. But yeah, it's it's a game that threw up so many questions and positives, but not the requisite 3 points.
And I think that's the crux of it, is that we've spoken on here over the last few weeks, and also when I've spoken to Liam and his players about grasping the opportunity, not leaving anything to chance, and not being in that situation where you come off the pitch having not won the game, and then you look around and see results having gone in your favour, and if we'd have done this, and that was exactly what it was on Saturday. And I guess throwing it forward, Coventry on Wednesday night, if it's football's all about ifs and buts, isn't it? And if they go to Coventry, and if they win at Coventry, then they're 3 points behind Norwich with 2 games to go. But you guarantee it rolls into Saturday. But by the time they play Ipswich, at 8 o'clock, if Norwich have beaten Swansea, then realistically it's over because of goal difference. It's still 6 points, but they need to win both, and need to be a massive 8-goal swing in goal difference at least. And Forest aren't involved, so the chances of that happening are almost zero.
That was ridiculous, wasn't it? Jesus.
Yeah, but in terms of Cov, they incredible effort in the
amazing
to come back from 3-0 down, and then we were just talking about it before about the offside call, weren't we? That's but I tweeted out last night. They'd done English football proud with the way they play, where they come back, the fighting. And somebody was like, "But they lost. What a load of sanctimonious crap that was." Like, well, no, but they're a championship team that have had, incredibly difficult times over the last 10 years or so. They've taken, admittedly, an average Manchester, by their standards, an average Manchester, but it's still Manchester United in the Cup semi-final. They've recovered 3-0 down, taken them to extra time, almost won it with an offside goal, and then lost on penalties. I think for the pyramid, and there's been a lot of talk about the pyramid this last few days. They've done, I think they have done themselves and the pyramid proud, don't you think?
Yeah, of course. It'd take a very hard-hearted football fan to stand against you saying that. But then, obviously the barometer for Christ. Discussion and nuanced debate on Twitter/X is just ridiculous, isn't it? Anybody that wasn't a Man U fan is watching that game wanting Coventry to win.
Yeah,
and if you don't, then you do not get football. Really, the decision, the VAR decision, again, not clear and obvious to the letter of the law. Right? Yes, but in the spirit of the game, and not. I mean, if you're a Man United fan, you're probably saying, "Well, don't give a whatever about the spirit of the game. You're either offside or you're onside," and I totally get that. VAR, it's not there to it's for clear and obvious, as I've stated many times before, but that was one of the truly glorious moments robbed from the FA Cup, which would have been one for the ages, really. And I think, given what else stuck in my kind of craw about it a little bit was, it'd have been, you'd have seen it on Twitter, would be the reaction of Anthony cupping his ears to and I say this with so as much respect, hopefully, as you can kind of see where I'm coming from. And I'm not saying he's not cupping his ears to a bunch of non-league players, the Championship, but the gap between the Championship and the Premier League is vast. the gap between Coventry City as an entity and Manchester United as an entity, I mean, they're universes away. And everyone knows that. And Coventry fans would say exactly the same thing. But that, and then Bruno giving the goalie some as well, you just sat there going, Christ, this was the team of Beckham, Keane, the Nevilles. This was the team that set the template of our generation of what a grand football club was, that played football to win, went to the end, chucked everything but the kitchen sink and more at the end of games to go out on a limb, to entertain and to win games and to be very tough and solid about it. And he's there getting sucked into a battle of whatever with the goalkeeper. And then Højlund runs off like he's won the World Cup and looks around and no one's near him. The only one that comes out with any form of kind of real glory is, you see Harry Maguire go straight over to Coventry and shake everyone's hand, and he was very measured in his post-match, which is, he's absolutely right. That to be 3-0 up and not see the game out for a team that would probably cost, what, £500 million to £1 billion to put together. It's that is when you look at it and go, correct, the football can be the most glorious thing, but it can properly kick you in the knackers, can't it? And that from a Football League point of view is what I saw. But Coventry were great. They were great last season. They were wonderful to watch all the way to the playoff final, which is obviously where Hull City want to be at the end of the season. And in Mark Robins, they've got a man who is turning gallon loads of water into wine on a weekly, monthly basis with uncut gems that he's brought into the side, selling on players that have gone on to do wonderful things, bringing other players in that again seem to be stepping up to the level. So it was barring the result, it was a wonderful day if you are of an EFL persuasion.
From a player's point of view, Prutz, so you've had that emotion. You've had the excitement of the build up to as a football league player, put yourself in the Coventry bracket. You've had all the build up and the excitement ahead of the game. Then you've had the emotional roller coaster of the game itself, of thinking you're out of it. You come back, you go to extra time, you think you've won it, you celebrate like you've won it. It's taken away from you, then you lose on penalty. How are you then feeling, knowing you've got a massive game? 3 days later, Coventry have 3 defeats in 4 in the Championship have fallen away a little bit. They know that it's unlikely they're going to get into the top 6, but equally, it's their game in hand also. How are you feeling? How are you getting yourself up for Wednesday? How are you mentally and physically feeling after 120 plus minutes of action, on a massive pitch at Wembley?
Well, it's that cliche of after the Lord Mayor's show, isn't it? They need to be able to step up and get back into it because of the dynamics of what the Championship is. You look at the teams, Norwich and West Brom, Borough, of course, in action tonight against Leeds, Preston on the same points as Borough in 10th. They'll want a Coventry side on at full tilt. Mark Robins will as well. I spoke to Mark earlier on the season, actually, on another podcast, and he's always wonderful company, very level. I mean, even when we were chatting to him as we'd seen Coventry beat Borough to get into the playoff final, he was so unbelievably measured when it came to talking about it.
He's fantastic.
That's his stock in trade, though. Doesn't deal in histrionics. He did. I suppose he did celebrate at the end of that Wolves game, didn't he? Very, very animatedly when they got through, which we can forgive someone for that.
Well, to be fair.
Yeah, but they need to. It's back to being that sense of what the professional part of being a footballer is. It's to quote Roy Keane, it's your job. It's the next game that comes along. You may feel hard done by. There may be an element of the emotions that you've got to deal with, but you've got to deal with them. Move on. Big game against City during the course of the week. A couple of days to get rested and kind of recoup. But that's the nature of the Championship. Playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, Tuesday, Sunday, Wednesday. That's the remit for the course of the season, isn't it? So they'll be noticeably frustrated today, I would presume. But come the game and when the whistle blows, that'll be their main focus. Because going back to what I was going to say about Mark, new ownership at Coventry City. He has been there a very, very long time. He has done a wonderfully incrementally better job. But the fact that they got to the playoff final last season and maybe don't make the playoffs this season, football's about the here and now. Coventry City would have been taken over with the aims to get into the Premier League, not to be a mid-table Championship club. Ajun comes in to take Hull City to the Premier League, not to be a mid-table Championship club. All these clubs have aspirations and ambitions, and he knows that his currency at Coventry is huge. His stock is very, very high, but he's judged on where the club are now, not where they were when he took over. It's where they are now. And if the ownership thinks that not finishing in the top six is something to be questioned, they will do that. I'm not saying for 1 second that he'd be any danger with regards to employment, because he's a wonderful, wonderful manager. But he knows just as well as anyone just how blunt and brutal football can be, and you are judged on your last game. I mean, if the last game of the season is nearly but not quite, then Mark himself will want better for himself and the club.
It was quite comical at Watford on Saturday. Liam Rossini was talking about the FA Cup semi-final and the fact he was going to go and watch and talk all the nice sort of stuff about the proud. Mark Robbins is a wonderful manager, etc., etc. And then he was asked, "What's the best outcome for you?" He's like, "Extra time." So he got that. He got his wish of extra time, and I think they played like 10 or 12 minutes at the end of normal time in added time as well. So from an energy point of view, if you're City, as in Hull City, how are you approaching it, knowing that team has gone to the well against United, and will be they haven't got the biggest squad. They picked up one of the injuries as well. How are you approaching it from that point of view?
Well, you've got to approach it in the way that City have done when they've got good results on the road against good teams. It's been high energy to start with. You mentioned the start against Watford. It sounds similar to what you saw in the very early exchanges against Southampton, but at Southampton they kept it up for the whole game, which is what they need. I'd like to think that given the fact that we are in, like we've got minutes left of the season, haven't we? Minutes left. So City have to go after them. Absolutely have to go after them. They want to dominate the ball, City, as they tend to. Coventry not necessarily are ones to do that, but they've got players that can hurt you. They've got really good technical footballers that can cause problems. So they've got to be very, very mindful of that. But given what's at stake, we're in cliched territory, aren't we? Of no second chances, every minute counts, all the kind of any given Sunday type speeches about going out and doing it. This is where it starts. And to give yourself the best chance to hopefully derail subconsciously or emotionally other teams that aren't playing at the same time. Like if City get a win, suddenly you've got Norwich and West Brom going, oh Christ, we now not the pressure's back on us, but mindful of not only their result but other results around them. And City are in that position to chase. They've got to keep chasing till that race is done. And that's what starts with on Wednesday, about allying the obvious ability that the squad's got with a relentlessness in making sure the opposition have a very, very uncomfortable night off the back of a very, very long day yesterday.
Bernsey said, I think it was last week, and got a lot of stick on Twitter for saying it, that he felt that West Brom were the team to catch. I wasn't quite so sure. I've always felt that West Brom will have enough about them to be there. You obviously saw them at Leicester. We were watching it in the media room at Vicarage Road, and from the bit that we saw, it felt like they played really well and were grossly unlucky. What was, from a West Brom point of view, what would you say with 2 games to go, and 2 tricky ones at that? Because away at Wednesday, given their result with Blackburn on Sunday,
huge one for them.
Yeah, at home to Preston. So Preston have gone, but Wednesday is a particularly tough one away at the minute, isn't it? So from a West Brom point of view, how would you assess that?
I think that I was watching that result come in yesterday, and you look at now where the maths sits for where Wednesday have put themselves. It's very firmly in their hands, isn't it? They win, they keep themselves honest between now and the end of the season, they'll be fine. Which, considering they've been in the bottom 2 for, I would say,
since September, isn't it?
So that's the first time they've been out of the bottom 3 since, not the bottom 2, the bottom 3 since September. I mean, talk about timing. It's time to perfection if they manage to pull that off. That is one of the great escapes. So you look at that and think that will not be an easy game whatsoever. And given, is it at Wednesday or is it at West Brom?
At Hillsborough, at Hillsborough.
Which, without boring you about personal experience, I've played there in very similar circumstances. And it can rip an opposition apart. That we played last game of the season against Borough, and we needed to win and to stay up. And in all the games I played, and a lot of them were just cut and thrust and very kind of attritional, we, for 25 to 30 minutes, we absolutely blew Borough away. And very rarely did I experience that in a game. We had Jermaine Johnson on one side, who was playing like a cross between, I don't know, Jack Grealish, Beckham at his best, and Ryan Giggs all rolled into one. He was just utterly phenomenal. And the energy that we felt as a team individually, we'd blown Borough away by 65 minutes in and almost enjoyed the last bit. Beautiful sunny day at Hillsborough. And a big part of that was the fans. And the fans were phenomenal. I think you would probably be knocking on the door of 30 odd, probably over 30 odd thousand fans there, and it was unreal. So now Wednesday have got themselves to a very similar position there, where West Brom can cause them problems. West Brom could have won 5-2 on Saturday at the bar a couple of times. Hamza Chowdhury, one of those wonderful defensive displays where he seems to just appear out of nowhere and kick it off the line. It's great. So other than that have been home and hosed very, very succinctly. So it's not a straightforward game for West Brom at all. The Preston game, toss of a coin. I'm intrigued to see what their approach is next season, because consistently once again flirted with somewhere near the top six, but ended up around mid-table. So it's by no means straightforward for them. And for Norwich City, that surprising draw for them against Bristol City, given the form that Norwich had found themselves in, means that after what we'd said in the last episode about where David Wagner was almost finding himself with regards to his position, to make sure he's in the dugout for Norwich next season, he has to finish in the playoffs, doesn't he? That's what you would think. So it's by no means straightforward for any of the teams involved. And now you look at it on paper and think that if you are chasing someone down, pressure's off. But is that the position that City wanted to find themselves in? Possibly not. It's the position that they do find themselves in. And all they can do is win their games. Which sounds very straightforward, that just win your games, be fine. That's all they can do. And hope that the other ones slip up.
We've touched on the FA Cup, and it's something I wanted to bring up. I know we haven't got a huge amount of time, but given that the way the replays was dealt with last week, the scrapping of the replays, the agreement between the FA and the Premier League, no consultation between the EFL and the National League. Liam Rosenior, understandably, was asked on Thursday about that, and his comments came. He got in fairness, he got a lot of stick from Hull City fans. Bearing in mind that City needed a replay against Brighton to get through to the FA Cup final in 2014, so of which he was part of. I think he sort of clarified that and said, look, he's not. As long as if replays are to be scrapped, then as long as financially the clubs lower down the pyramid are recompensed, then you can kind of get on board with that. He spoke about the pressure on players, the extra games, the fans are paying good money and perhaps not seeing the players at their best because of the amount of games they're playing. I think that argument sort of falls down in the Premier League, where you've got clubs at the end of the season, 3 days after the season finishes, sending their players to Australia. And so I find that argument a bit weak. But from a player's point of view, Prutz, and somebody that works in the EFL, where again, and having played in FA Cup replays over the years at different clubs, where are you at with it?
I was very surprised that it was done without consultation. And I still need to kind of drill down into that to make sure that is absolute categorical fact, because that is a massive thing to just drop on 3 divisions in the Football League and then obviously into the National League. That's a huge thing to just go, by the way, this isn't happening. And everyone kind of goes, sorry, were we asked about this at all? The bit about players' fatigue and welfare, Pep was asked it, or he made the point, didn't he, after the game on against Chelsea about when the game was and the scheduling of the game and all that type of stuff. And Jurgen Klopp said it many times with regards to playing in Europe, then playing at lunchtime on a Saturday. that it's from a playing point of view. I understand what relative fatigue is. I understand as well that me giving my opinion on possibly a football team that plays domestically in Europe and has international footballers is something I don't have experience of at all. I don't know what it's like to play in Europe or have a European campaign or get to a European final or battle at the top end of the Premier League or play internationally. I don't have any experience of that at all. But seeing what the Football League is in the Championship and how many games, there was a stat put up about how many games Peterborough might play come the end of the season if they get to the playoffs. That's in the late 50s, I think. It borderline possibly 60. And probably the argument that comes from fans of bigger clubs or higher up the pyramid, there's travel involved. The games are probably played at a higher tempo. Standards probably better. And I get all that, but it's still a game of football. It's still relative exertion on a player and his fitness. But these institutions that are put together, these squads that cost billions of pounds to put together, if you're Man City and you can't field at least two 11s of world-class players, then what you're doing with your recruitment, same with Liverpool. If you can't field two sets of international players for different, then what you're spending your money on? That's what I don't get. And it just seemed to ride roughshod over what, as our generation classically loves about the cup, is upsets. I remember being sat on the bench for Leeds. This was over a decade ago. We played Histon away. I'd been dropped for the game. So Gary McAllister brought me and Paul Telfer in, who was a very, very close friend of mine. I said, I'm going to change things up. This is happening. All right, so we're not playing it now. Okay. And I'm seething. And Telf, being 10 years older than me, was like, just calm down, mate. I mean, sometimes you play, sometimes you don't. Like, grow up. And I was like, no, we're chuntering away. 15 minutes into that game, when it's absolutely chucking it down and we're getting battered, I'm sat there going, thank Christ I'm not on this pitch. Thank Christ I'm not on this pitch. It then becomes an FA Cup upset. Yes, it's League One, Leeds United, but it's still Histon against Leeds United, this entity. And you see how wonderful that is and what that tournament brings. Yes, that was a one-off. There was no replay. I totally get that. But over the years, what replays have created is that sense of magic still being available to these clubs and remuneration. Now, if the money is still there and the clubs still get the money, from a duty of care point of view, then that is a box ticked. But it's not all about the bottom line, is it? It's not all about the money. It's not all about making sure that people get the fair share. That's not the whole debate. It comes from what the magic of the FA Cup. That's what the cliche comes from. It comes from the magic of what that tournament is, what it means around the world, what it means to fans. Again, maybe generationally it's changed, but to fans in this country, it was always there was a debate on Talk Sport, which, I mean, whether you put any credence to it or not, I don't know. Darren Bent's take on what the double was the Premier League and the Champions League. It's not. It's the Premier League and the FA Cup. That's the traditional double. Everyone knows that as a free-thinking, balanced football fan. That's what the double is. But then, like I said, generationally, maybe it is about the Champions League. Maybe it is about what UEFA want to do with it, which I think is a shame for us in this country. We do still have the biggest and best division, which is the Premier League, and by a sliding scale of attendances, the Championship is it still away from the top divisions across Europe? It's up there with the best attended divisions, which is amazing. But that kind of it just seems to be another acceptance of what the game is becoming. And I understand that I work in corporations that do have literally a vested interest in how big the Premier League is. I totally get that. But the bit that annoyed me about it was done so swiftly and without any inherent debate of the relative merits of it, that almost dismissively of 72 plus other clubs that would probably go, hang on, can we give you our valid reasons about why we do quite like replays? Yes, there's a lot of football being played, but so what? It's football. We're not sending people down a mine every single day for the best part of 340 days a year, are we? There's nothing to do with that. It's and when it gets to welfare of players and all that, I mean, welfare is such a wonderfully interpretive word. I think Kevin De Bruyne said something about it. Virgil van Dijk said something about it in the past. But then, like you say, Newcastle finished the season. They're off to Australia to earn a shed load of money for summer.
And the thing that I find bizarre is that the Premier League and Championship clubs don't come in until the third round anyway. So why take away, using Histon's example of playing League One Leeds United in a replay in round 2, which would be televised, which would
They had nothing to do with anyone, like say the top 2 tiers.
And also, I was at Forest against Blackpool in January, the third round of the FA Cup. Forest went 2-0 down, and got back and got a 2-2. Knew that should have been their winter break at that point. And Nuno came out after the game whining like a baby about having to play a replay, about the impact on the players not having the break. Just be better. If a Premier League team cannot beat a lower league team in an FA Cup game, that's their own problem.
Thomas Frank said the same thing. Didn't he, with Brentford, about playing these games when I played at Brentford when they were in League One, and they were nowhere near the entity that they are now. So
the FA Cup money, I just think it's a red herring, and I think the amount of replays the Premier League teams actually play, which isn't a huge amount. Pep Guardiola has been rattling on about it, and he whines like the best of them. Him and Klopp particularly. And they're probably 2 managers that have forced this. But they don't actually play that many FA Cup replays. I know we had the situation with Shrewsbury and Liverpool. I think it was in 2020 when Liverpool were away and they were going to play the kids and stuff. But I just think it's ridiculous. It's been, and the amount of EFL clubs that have come out and also non-league clubs like local to even North Ferriby came out and had their say. And it shows you, like as you touched on, the fact that nobody was aware of this. Nobody in the lower leagues and non-league were, and there's, I think I saw a stat the other day, like Premier League teams make up something like 0.2% of all clubs, from all the way down to step 9 that enter the FA Cup. There's like, there's 8-9 rounds before you even get the first round proper. So, I just find it ridiculous. I think we need to move on. Because I know we're short of time. Lots of questions. So I thank people for questions. The Fat Bowl Sausage, our good friend, Alex, Matty, Liam, all asking questions about the summer. We will get to those, but unfortunately it won't be today just because we're short on time. Other than to say, really heartening to hear Tyler Morton and Liam Delap in the last few days come out and say how much they're loving life at City and that they would, basically would welcome moves back next season. Whether that's possible, finances will dictate that. What Liverpool plan for Tyler Morton, what Manchester City plan for Liam Delap will dictate. But, City certainly want those players back. And if there's an opportunity, probably Fabio Carvalho, there's less of a chance, obviously.
Yeah.
But in terms of Morton and Delap, 2 big players that if they could get them back next season would be a real boost, wouldn't they?
Oh, huge, yeah. And the fact as well that it just seems across the board mutually beneficial. They've enjoyed it. City have enjoyed having them. Yes, there is that what if element of having Liam available over the course of the season, which again will be one for a parallel universe. But hearing that type of enthusiasm, as like I said before about Hull being turning themselves into a destination club rather than a stepping stone, maybe seems a little bit unrealistic given where these players are actually in from, because with the greatest respect, if you're making waves here and then go back to your parent club and your parent club is a colossus and you get a chance, then it's done for a reason. But the ability to attract players, I think we discussed about that being one of Liam's really great strengths. I've been intrigued to see financially how that works once again in the summer. As we know, it's an ongoing debate about FFP and cutting your cloth accordingly. But there's been, I think, without writing off this season, I think there's been enough positive action and nice peripheral noise about what Hull City and Liam Rosenior have done together, that there will be teams and clubs and players going, well, if I'm not going to get a look in here at X club in the Premier League from 10th upwards, then Hull City is a decent protocol to carry on my football education from right now. So hopefully ringing endorsements from the likes of Tyler and Liam means that makes that job even more straightforward than it seemingly has been, because they've got some very good players in, haven't they? Whether, again, we talk about that standard of player, and collectively, if the chemistry was right to make sure that they had a prolonged assault on the top six and got a place in the top six and kept it there, that's a slightly different thing. But there's a lot to like about what Hull City have done. But again, going back to what I said, not using potentially the Mark Robbins example, it's still about the here and now. And if City don't finish in the top six, that first issue that needs to be addressed is this is definitely a chance missed. Definitely a chance missed.
In terms of another question from Steve on Noah Ohio and Aaron Connolly, neither of whom were involved on Saturday. I guess that is some will look at that as a bizarre situation. You brought Noah in January. He's been in and out of the squad. Obviously, Aaron Connolly just hasn't got back to anything like his best after the incident when he had his head taken off by Angus Gunn against Norwich. But equally, there's only you can name 9 players on the bench, and Liam always likes, as all managers do, they like to have various areas of cover on the bench. And on Saturday, he went for Liam Delap and Billy Sharp. I guess there's a case for, some would say, instead of having Billy Sharp, you have Ohio or you have Connolly. But he's now got pretty much, apart from Zaruri, he's got everybody fit. You can't name everybody on the bench, and needs to have cover defensively as well as going forward, doesn't he?
He does. It's a tough one, because I think we're now getting to the stage where, and I think I've used the example before of what a Neil Warnock bench looks like. No goalkeeper, 3/4 of it attacking players. So I'm not saying for one second that Liam should do anything that I tell him to do, but you would lean more towards having an attacking bench at this stage of the season. I mean, go down swinging with regards to outscoring the opposition. Which might, I could say that, and it could look very daft if you miss out on goal difference or a single point that you didn't get or did get or whatever. But there's enough jeopardy in these last few games to really go for it. They've got to beat Coventry. They've got to beat Coventry, haven't they? So,
well, they may as well then. He may as well name Connolly and Ohio on the bench and go with Delap and Sharp and go 4 strikers. And in fairness, even if he went with 4 strikers on the bench, it still leaves him 5 other players, which it should be more than sufficient.
And so then, even then, you are looking at the other 5 being non-strikers. So then you're still leaning towards defensive territory and preservation territory, aren't you? Rather than actually going kind of balls out for the win. I'm not saying. Liam doesn't strike me as a manager that goes into games wanting not to lose them. He strikes me as a manager who goes into games wanting to win them. Whether there's been enough of the real kind of, not firepower, but that creative spark of being able to put teams to bed, and consistency of that is another debate. But I'd definitely pack it with attacking players, because it's something or bust territory now, isn't it? They've got to go for it.
Well, if they don't win on Wednesday night, it's done. Even if they got a point at Coventry, the 5 points adrift with 2 games to go. With the best will in the world and a vastly inferior goal difference, it's over. And you can try and flower it or sugarcoat it as much as you want, but they have to win. And then if they have, in order to do that, they need to score some goals. And in fairness to them, they scored 8 goals in 3 games before Saturday, and they did come up against a goalkeeper that made 2 or 3 good saves without going over the joint again. They probably didn't create enough in the 60 minutes before that, but that's by the by. They've got to go for it. He's got to go for it. He's got to. Probably at Coventry, I'd be tempted. Would given that his penchant for playing an attacking 4 rather than a centre forward. You've got Delap. You've now got Delap. He's played. I think he played for half an hour on Saturday, 20 minutes the other day. I know that it's all about load now, and you've got to be careful with him. But would you be minded to start him on Wednesday night, and then if you've got Sharp, Connolly, and Ohio in reserve, that if it doesn't work or he runs out of steam after an hour, you've got somebody in reserve? Or would you start somebody else and leave Delap as an impact off the bench?
Well, I would lean towards giving him at least 45 minutes either way, whether he comes on at half time or starts the game and comes off at half time or gets himself through to 60 minutes. I understand workload and the minutes in his legs, but that's got to be met with why he's here, to try and get results for City. If you send him back off to Man City all nicely ready to go, it's very kind of you, but he's a City player at the moment. You need him on the pitch. That's not saying for 1 second that you chuck a player out that's dead on his feet at all, and has been out for a long time with injury. Like I said, I think he needs to have 45 minutes of that game, whichever side of that of half time that looks like, because you either go for it early doors and consolidate, or you not leave it to the second half, but you have half an hour and bring in someone on that can cause some real havoc in a game where potentially the opposition are tiring after a very big weekend for them. Take that into account as well. Not fully fit, but raring to go Liam Delap. 45 minutes going after a team that's played 120 plus penalties, plus the travel, plus the emotion involved in it, should have an impact on the game, definitely.
Yeah. Prutz, that's all we've got time for. I know you've got to shoot off and I've got to get to the training ground. So thank you for your time as always, Prutz.
Loved it, mate. Loved it. And I was being flippant at the top, but we do dearly miss Fletchy and Burnsy, don't we? Wherever they are, come back soon. Fletchy.
Oh, Fletchy.
Oh, Fletchy.
Yeah, so we'll be back again soon. We've had so many questions in again. Sorry, I didn't get to Jordan. One came in about Matty Jacob. Apologies, we didn't get to that. Matty Jacob was outstanding on Saturday. We'll cover that later in the some point further down the track, because he's been brilliant. So many other questions about the future, about what happens to the loan players. We've scratched it, but we will cover that. We've got plenty of time to come over the summer. Tickets still on sale for May the 7th, or £3 tickets for the live event. Ticket proceeds go to charity. You can get those at Eventbrite, or they're in the show notes here. We'll be back we're hoping to have a post-match episode on Thursday to reflect on what we hope will be 3 points and seasons just about still on after Coventry. If you head into Coventry, take it steady. Safe journey. Thanks for getting in touch, everybody. And we will be back again soon.